Welcome to Beyond the Backlog, where we look at thrilling tales of gaming triumphs, both past and present, exploring the strategies, challenges, and unforgettable moments that shape the ever-evolving landscape of our digital adventures. I'm Nick.
And I'm Zack.
And today we're going to take a look at the games we beat in February, that we kind of started in February, that we enjoyed, we liked, we want to talk about.
All right, and before we get into that, as we did last month, let's just kind of go over some of the big things that came out in February and see if there's anything on there that you're interested in picking up or playing, or any games that you did pick up this month. Do you remember those?
I picked up one game, and I think that was it. I picked up Persona 5 Royal.
All right. Do you have any interest in Persona 3 that got a remastered release this month?
Probably.
Maybe down the line. So why'd you get Persona 5?
It was on sale. It was on sale. It's going to be a game that takes up a lot of time for it, and I'm really trying to cut down on the games I buy, because the whole point of trying to get through the backlog is actually playing games.
What? We actually get through the backlog here?
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think we went together, and that was the only time I purchased any games as well, and it was right before we recorded the episodes on Series I Want to Make a Return, and I kind of figured I talked about Tony Hawk in that. I might as well try some of the Tony Hawk games that I haven't played before, so I got Proving Ground for the PS3, and then just to kind of fill up some collections I have, because we've been playing F-Zero, and I was thinking Extreme G is another good futuristic fast racing game. So I picked up Extreme G Racing Association on GameCube. And then because I was literally just playing a Harry Potter game last month, I saw Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets on GameCube, which is one of the ones I don't have yet. And I picked that one up as well. So pretty much just finishing up my collections of series I already own.
Harry Potter really does feel one of those, like, oh, you know what, if I get some, I kind of want all of them.
Yeah, and it does have that nostalgic factor of, like, I did play Chamber of Secrets, but on PC, that way back when, that was one of, like, the original, like, actual CDs I had, and I don't know if I will enjoy the GameCube version, how different it is now. But anyway, some big games that came out. Two that I've heard so far did not have the greatest reception. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and Skull and Bones.
Oh, I didn't even realize Skull and Bones was like out.
Valentine's Day, I think.
Poor guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Skull and Bones, I've kind of kept an eye on because I have a cousin who's very into pirate games. So we convinced him, he convinced us. We've been playing Sea of Thieves, which we mentioned. And when you hear the comparisons between what Sea of Thieves lets you do and what Skull and Bones lets you do, it's kind of shocking, right? Because as far as I know, you can't really do really much of anything on Skull and Bones. You have certain places that you can land. Mm-hmm. You don't quite have the same amount of free combat that you do.
I feel like the general consensus from what I've seen, and I haven't actually watched anything more than a brief review of it, but there seems to be a lot of people saying it's kind of how, what was the other one? Oh my gosh.
Sea of Thieves?
The Sea of Thieves was when it first released, where it was like a good proof of concept that might get updated down the line and become a full-fledged game.
That's a good point. I have friends that had played Sea of Thieves way back when it first came out, and they were like, yeah, it was fun, but like you kind of had, you did what you did, and then that was kind of it. And now that they've come back to it too, we all play and they go, oh no, there's actually like a lot of extra stuff, new islands, new places, new things. And it'll be interesting to see with Skull and Bones if that continues. But I do know Sea of Thieves is now coming out on PS5.
Mm-hmm. I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure they were announced around the same time, because I remember it being like which one are you more excited for between those two? So the fact it's been however many, like 6 years since Sea of Thieves, just kind of drives home how late this one was kind of getting to the door and finally being in players' hands.
Well, and it's weird because you think of something like an early access, which happens a lot now on things like Steam. And they use it as a proof of concept and then build on it. But having such a drastic change between the two is just a little bit wild.
Mm-hmm. And then the only reason I brought up Suicide Squad is because I thought it was kind of notable that the developers actually apologized for how poorly received the game was.
I do think I saw that.
But anyway, some other big ones, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I don't personally think I'm going to be getting to that anytime soon, but a lot of people I work with are very excited for it. They loved the first Final Fantasy VII like remake part that came out.
Yeah.
They love Final Fantasy 16. They said it's like another good Final Fantasy game. And then Nintendo had Mario versus Donkey Kong, which a $50 game, or maybe $60 in Canada for a remake of a Game Boy game. I don't know if it's gonna convince me to pick it up and play it when I already have the Game Boy Advance version. But anyway, the only two games that came out that I was kind of interested in, Pacific Drive, because that just looked like it was like dripping in this atmosphere and kind of creepy vibe. And apparently it's really hard. So maybe one of these days I'll take a look at that, because I'm not usually into like crafting and survival type games, but that one looks interesting. And Penny's Big Breakaway, because I love me a 3D platformer.
I have heard that game is like quite good.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, moving on. I'm going to jump right into the first game that I actually beat in February. And I was super excited to talk about this one because Zelda, and that is The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. So I mentioned having just started this last month, but I actually went through. I didn't 100% complete it because I don't think it's one of those games that makes me want to 100% it, but it does take advantage of the DS really well.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, too. Weren't you a little bit more lukewarm with that initial one? Because you saw a lot of similarities between it and Phantom Hourglass.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to just go into a couple of the things that are very similar in what I preferred about each game. But I remember saying I was excited to see how this one panned out, and I'm really glad I did get to witness it. So some of the items that they have in there, like the boomerang is a returning one from Phantom Hourglass. But in this, they also added the ability to, like, say, drag ice and fire across things to, like, melt it, or to, like, freeze a path over water to, like, cross that water gap. And I thought that was, like, just a really cool way to make it feel like you're taking these returning items from Phantom Hourglass and improving upon them, expanding their utility. And, like, the sand rod was probably the coolest new one there. And it was just, there was so many puzzles later in the game using that sand rod where I was actually just blown away with how creative it got. The microphone use, though, was a little more questionable. The instruments, like that they make you play, you're blowing into the microphone while dragging the actual flute across the screen, and it's clunky and awkward, and I did not feel like I was playing the songs.
I remember that too with Phantom Hourglass had some puzzles where you use the microphone, and it just always fell off to me. So
the DS does not have a good microphone.
No.
I'm glad they tried, and I think if you have a DS and you are a fan of playing games on the DS, you should get Spirit Tracks, but I don't necessarily think if you're a Zelda fan, you have to get a DS to play this one. But I did think it was a good step up in difficulty from Phantom Hourglass. Like, it feels like they're expecting you to have played Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah, it seemed very much like a sequel.
Yeah, like it is a direct sequel in story, in plot, in characters. Like, some of them, even from Wind Waker, have made it all the way to Spirit Tracks. And just comparing some of them directly, so that the Tower of Spirits in Spirit Tracks kind of does what the Temple of the Ocean King did in Phantom Hourglass, except so much better, because there's not a huge time limit, and you don't have to repeat the same floors over and over. You still come back to it 6 times, but each time is a different
experience with different layout.
And the lack of time limit means they could actually make the puzzles hard. And it was actually fun. Like, I was actually tested. But beyond that, like, the 100% completion process was not nearly as intuitive or fun or interesting as it was in Phantom Hourglass. I didn't want to collect these force gems because you're just wasting potentially hours of your time unlocking shortcuts for the train, which just kind of seemed silly because I'm like, or I could just not spend that time doing it and just take a few extra detours.
Yeah, it's like they saw all the issues with ship travel and like Wind Waker, or I can't really remember Phantom Hourglass because it's been a long time, but anything to kind of speed that up, but they just kind of roadblocked it a bit, right?
And I like that because obviously you're not in a big open sea, you can't just drag the stylus around to map your ship path out. But it felt like you just couldn't go places and explore and find things along the way because you're on tracks. And it makes sense. I totally get it. It was a different way to do it. It just wasn't as organically like fun to explore.
Yeah.
But other than that, the finale was also a little silly because obviously with a train theme, they had to make some sort of giant train that you fight on tracks.
Yeah.
And I remember just rolling my eyes being like, yep, they did that. That's in a Zelda game. But it's overall, if you love Zelda, if you love especially Phantom Hourglass, definitely don't skip out on Spirit Tracks.
Now here's my question. Does it make the top 10 Zeldas?
I think right after finishing it, it's one I would have put on my top 10, but even just almost a month away from the game, it would hover around that 10th spot, and I'm pretty sure I put in Oracle of Seasons because that was also the last one I had just played, yes. And I think it kind of sticks around there because Oracle of Seasons was almost my... Like I was debating between that and Phantom Hourglass originally.
So now there's 3 that kind of...
Yeah, where I don't think I could confidently shoot it up the list, but still worth playing.
Yeah. I'll definitely need to take a look because that's one of the Zelda games that I've never beaten. And I do own it, so it's really just a matter of where it fits on my list of what I want to play. But we get to my first game that I beat also right near the beginning of the month. Would have been like the 1st or 2nd of February that I beat it, and that was Pokemon Stadium. I know I mentioned it a bit during the January video of something I was playing, but man, Gen 1 Pokemon is just janky.
You could say that again.
Oh, it's so hard going back to it after dealing with even the comparison between that and Gen 3. And it became such a struggle to do it. So I took beating it as doing the gym leader tower, which is basically you beat a couple trainers, beat the gym leader, go to the next gym, etc., until you get to the Elite Four. But I did the same group of 6 Pokemon.
The whole way?
The whole way.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because I kept it as like, you know what, when I tend to play Pokemon, that's how I do it, is I'll just get a party and then go. It's not often that I go, I don't really like you. I'm just going to switch you out halfway through.
And that is kind of one of the limitations of the rental system they have as well, is it doesn't really encourage you to experiment with a lot of Pokemon because some of them just have crap movesets. And it just winds up being a little bit archaic because it limits you at level 50 and gives you the same movesets. So it's not like you can pick and choose movesets. So some Pokemon just suck because their movesets suck. But then also some of the Gen 1 issues, like you can't move after you're wrapped or you wake up from sleep. So you can just get into a scenario, which did happen a couple of times where I was just asleep or wrapped constantly and I just couldn't do anything. Yeah, you almost have that feeling. You're like, your Pokemon woke up and you're like, oh, you better not. And then their turn cast hypnosis and you're like, oh, no. It wound up being Fire Spin actually that did it the most. Because the only Pokemon that I kept that could get over it was a Vaporeon because it knew Quick Attack. So I'd just be sitting there, mashing the buttons, kind of just doing nothing else, and just waiting for Quick Attack to work and to kill. That was it. So like once it reached that point, it just took a lot more out of it. There isn't as much of a back and forth. It's just more, okay, well, can I deal with whatever tomfoolery is going on? But it was kind of my stubbornness as well, keeping the same party. Have you ever tried the cups that are available in that, like, it's
I don't think I ever have.
one of the main stadium modes, and I kind of like that as well as like a way to try different parties, because one of them is like only first stage Pokemon are allowed.
Okay, yeah.
And they're all like level 15 to like your opponents get up to maybe like level 20. And so it's like, that's kind of an interesting way to make you use stuff you wouldn't have used, like a Caterpie.
Yeah. You kind of get more of a adoration for Pokemon that you wouldn't really use.
But
yeah, I had thoughts of going into Pokemon Stadium 2 afterwards, and I was like, you know what, no, I'm kind of stadiumed out here for a little bit.
If you do, I would recommend trying those cup battles.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go on to my second one, and this is one that I have played many an hour of back in the day when I first got my DS. If you couldn't tell, I was on a DS kick. And that is Mario Kart for the DS, which also coincided with us filming our episode about Mario Kart tracks. And rather than just dive in and kind of play through each one once, I kind of gave it the full treatment of, like, I did already have everything unlocked on this.
Yeah.
So just to cross it off my list on my backlog, I beat all the cups on 150cc, all the cups on mirror mode. I did the time trials to try and beat the staff times on every track. And then I played the main single player story mission mode through. So as I said, did the whole thing, just was starting from everything unlocked already. And some of the best designs for tracks, which I talked about pretty extensively.
And I think Mario Kart DS is one of your favorite Mario Karts too, I believe.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Mario Kart 8 kind of being the culmination of all the ideas getting better over time, Mario Kart DS is the one that I would want to go back and play as a mostly single-player gamer.
That's fair.
And that is because that mission mode, it just needs to return. The idea of doing boss battles in Mario Kart was a novel idea for the DS, and I think like 15, almost 20 years later, they could do something really cool if it came back in like a Mario Kart 9.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of those level designs and some of the brand new levels are some of the best in the series, and they play so well on the DS. And it was also the first time that they had a full like remade retro tracks. So that was like, between the retro tracks and the advent of like the Wi-Fi play, it was like the game to have back when it came out in like 2006. And I remember getting it for Christmas, and I remember sitting at my grandparents connecting to their Wi-Fi, getting my ass absolutely whooped in Cheap Cheap Beach, and just thinking like, this is amazing. I was 12 sitting there playing with people across the world. And that was such a cool thing in 2006.
Especially growing up not as PC gamers, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't have that experience of, oh yeah, we'll just go play World of Warcraft with, the buds, whoever, wherever they are.
Because, yeah, I was going to say, my experience of playing multiplayer games not in the same room as somebody before then was like Age of Empires.
Yeah.
And having my uncle have to like help me set that up and like do the server online with him. But the last thing about Mario Kart DS I wanted to mention was that I think the unlock scheme for that game is also the best out of any, where it's like essentially every speed class doing the 4 cups in a row unlock something.
Okay.
So it's worth playing the 50cc, even if you can do the 150 right off the bat, because there's more kart customization and like characters to unlock that way. So yeah. I just think it's the one out of all the Mario Karts, again, as a single player focused man, that makes me want to play the whole game.
Yeah, especially with racing games, and it's hard to get into more of a single player experience with that, right? My next one, and I think I mentioned it on a prior video as well, where it probably would have been on my top of 2023 list if I'd actually gotten around beating the thing instead of just stopping and starting. It's Baldur's Gate 3. I don't really like the kind of top-down RPGs. I've always had issues with it.
And that being like in general, or like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2?
Like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, like Planescape Torment, things like that. Even just Diablos, even something like that too. I've just never been able to get into it. And I think that's just I didn't grow up as a PC gamer. But I think this game just had the little extra bits that made me really invested in it. Because it's very hard to go around, talk to someone, and then just have a static screen with like, here's a bunch of walls of text. And what they do is anytime you talk to someone, it is a little jarring because they'll go to a moving person talking to you and you talk to them and say the lines and then you jump back into the top down.
Okay.
But I think that little bit just added to it, right? It made me feel just a little bit more invested with it and just a little bit brighter instead of just walk around, wall of text, answer, wall of text. You get to see the emotions of it all.
So a little extra personality, a little more connection with the characters.
Exactly. And then it's just a game where your choices matter, right? Like you can do side quests in Act 1 and Act 2, and they'll kind of have a culmination in Act 3, depending on how you've interacted with the people beforehand. Because like your main character is static, but then you have 3 other choices to kind of make your team, and each companion that you have has their own main quest that they're working towards as well.
Like 3 other choices, as in like 3 more like character slots, or like 3 times you get to make a choice?
3 more character slots for party members.
Okay.
So you have a big camp that you'll go to, and I think there's maybe 8 or 9 characters that you can have in your party, and then you can mix and match. You don't have to have experience. There's like a group experience. So that winds up working out really well, because then when you do join someone in, they immediately level up like 8 times.
Okay.
So you're not stuck with, well, there's no point using this person because they're just so far down.
I mean, obviously, considering I'm about to talk about Pokemon, I want to ask, like, is it similar to how in more recent Pokemon games, just battling in the wild will level up your whole party?
Kind of, yeah. But there's not really random encounters in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very set into people. I don't even believe that they're respawnable. I don't think they are. You go to a place, you can kill things, and then they're dead. Right? They don't respawn, which is kind of nice. It makes you feel like what you've done in the world is more permanent.
Mm-hmm. But I'm going to keep like asking questions relating it to other Nintendo franchises, because even though this is like your 3rd time talking about Baldur's Gate, I still know very little. Any sort of like Blood Moon in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom system that like resets the world?
No, none at all. So it's what winds up happening is basically each act is its own map. So you can do everything in the map. Each act has like a big main quest that you kind of do with a big choice at the end. Help this party or hinder the party, like good or evil, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're done with everything, you can complete all the side quests, and those side quests can kind of change depending on what you've done so far in the world. Then you do all that, and then you can move on to the next area.
Okay.
And then the next area has second act for it. And there might be some people, like NPCs, that'll move from one area to the other, depending on what actions you took. Then that all culminates getting into the town of Baldur's Gate, or the city of Baldur's Gate. And then you go and you defeat the big bad, and then boom, credits. But that game was like 80 hours.
Fair enough. I was going to say, you were talking about it for quite a while.
Yeah, I have friends that did like multiple stories of it, and they're like 300 hours in.
Oh yeah, same.
Yeah, because you also have like origin stories. So you can make your own character, or you can use one of the party member characters.
Now, is this the game that you listed as your game for February?
This was my game for February, yeah. Because I figured, you know what, I really need to beat this game.
Mm-hmm. And it was kind of nice to have that big project.
Yeah, it's hours taken off of it, right? So instead of, 3 5-hour games, I beat an 80-hour game.
Mm-hmm. And my big one that I did for February, that was my RPG that I wanted to finish, because I want to do one per month. And I might have already spoiled this a little bit, Pokemon, and I did the most recent generation, Gen 9. I played Pokemon Scarlet. And right away, after kind of getting situated and doing the basic, like, come with me to the lighthouse and let's have our first Pokemon battle kind of tutorial, I was kind of blown away by just how seamlessly they're able to transition into a battle now in the open world. Like, it does look a little janky, and like, it's not the smoothest transition, but
they're getting there.
They're getting so close, and it's impressive how they have like so many character models and all these like terrestrializations that they can do now. It's like there's a lot of actual work put into these. It would just be great if they could make it like look and play as well as some of their other big franchises.
Yeah, that would have been my first question, because famously this Pokemon game is not great in terms of graphic style.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the draw distance isn't there. Things kind of chug when they really shouldn't.
And maybe I'm just too young and naive and just have that little inner kid in me that just remembers playing Pokemon on my Game Boy back in like car rides in 1998. But this just feels like what I remember experiencing Pokemon as when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's fun.
Mm-hmm. That's where, like, I feel kind of bad for like kids nowadays who have been spoiled by all these wonderful open world games and won't have that same sense of intrigue and wonder, kind of like revisiting their childhood memories that I did going through this. But it was genuinely the first time in many generations, since maybe Gen 3, that I was just hooked right from the beginning, and I wanted to go out and explore. And I loved that you could do the shared experience right from the beginning. It's one of those where that's not why I play Pokemon, is for like that particular challenge of like raising them from like level 2 as your one you have to like swap out to gain experience. Like that wasn't too fun to me. I'd rather just, level up my whole party as I go.
Yeah, it makes it a little easier, but like, I don't want to go through the hassle, right? It's easiness, or is it a bunch of wasted hours, right?
And one of the things that I really felt like I experienced differently compared to when I was a kid is I didn't keep the same party throughout. There's so many places you can go where there's higher level Pokemon just wandering around, and I was able to catch them if I played skillfully.
It was one of my favorite parts of Scarlet when I played through it.
But if they're too high of a level, then you have that trade-off of they won't listen to you in battle. And so I remember a Scyther I caught like level 27 really early on. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to absolutely steamroll everyone. I literally had to put it in my box and just wait. And I ended up bringing it out once I was able to actually use it.
Yeah.
And he became one of my main party members going on. But at no point did I feel like I had the same Pokemon as my lead party member for all my basic just wandering around, taking care of business fights for more than maybe half an hour.
Yeah, it was really good to switch through them. I'll always remember going through my playthrough of it and wandering around, because I like to just kind of wander, see, experience, and then all of a sudden wandering into a level 44 Pokemon, and I go, oh, I don't think I can run away from this one.
Mm-hmm. And I remember going towards the normal type gym. There's like a cave you can go through. I see a big shiny Pokemon ahead of me. I'm like, ooh, let's check this out. My guys are all like mid-level 30s at this point, and it's a level 75 Lucario. And I was like, oh God. And I'm like, why not? And I went for it. And I was able to take him down. I'm like, I am so close to everyone being fainted right now that I am just going to go for the KO.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be able to use it anyway, right? I can only, like, Pokemon to level 50 at that point can obey me. So I'm like, no point in trying to catch it, because I wouldn't be able to use it except for the Elite Four. And I kind of want to have, like my team of guys that have come with me the whole way through. And it was just so cool being able to use my prior knowledge to do that. And like the Titan Pokemon, the fact they don't tell you their level. Yeah. So I remember the one is the Earth type, and it's about level 45 based on what I saw online. I had no idea, and I was approaching that with people in their like high level 20s, and I managed to take it down but I was like stretched to my limit. And I was so proud of myself. And that was something I haven't had in a Pokemon game in a long time, is that sense of resistance.
Yeah, because definitely like Sword and Shield was a big bad one for that, where you just kind of felt like you just wandered through.
I almost had to like swap out Pokemon for weaker ones just to have fun in that one. Whereas this, there was that trade-off of, because I did that early, I had a really over-leveled team for some other challenges. But because you get experience for catching Pokemon, I was doing a lot of catching. And sometimes just for fun, just because I could, I would swap my party out for lower level Pokemon that were like more suited to the level of the like gym that I was going towards or something. Now, there was also some silly business, like the actual gym challenges were just
padding. I just call it padding.
Padding. They were fluff. They were not meaningful. They were not interesting. And other than that, I think that I really did care a lot about some of the Pokemon here, but the way they used them in like these gym challenges or that, like, I just wanted to go out and explore and appreciate the Pokemon here. I didn't like that a lot of the Titan Pokemon, for example, were old generations. I wish they would have kind of played into some of these new ones and make you kind of have an appreciation for some of their new designs. And even like the gym leaders, I might be wrong, but I can't think of one who had a brand new Pokemon as like their big finale.
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Not off the top of my head, at least.
But on the flip side, I remember the first time I saw Smoliv, and I was like so like captivated by just how cute it was that I like paused the game. I like made a little video of me being like, oh my gosh. And I sent it to my girlfriend being like, look at this. Look at him. His name, Smoliv. And the resource that you get for like knocking him out, Smoliv oil. It was just those kinds of moments. It was the first time I've had that in Pokemon in a long time.
Yeah, I got a little bit of it with Legends Arceus. I don't know if you've played that through.
And that's where I think I'm missing that link. I never played Arceus. I would love to though.
Yeah, because on that note, they did do a Pokemon Day kind of live stream where they talked about the stuff going on with them. And a lot of it was stuff you don't really care about. They talk about DLC. They talk about mobile games, things like that. They did do a cool bit on like a mobile Pokemon trading card game, and that's kind of neat. Mm-hmm. But they announced the newest Legends game, which from what I'm seeing takes place in Galar, where X and Y is. Mm-hmm. And it's all based just in the one city.
Lumios.
Yes.
But who would play the Pokemon trading card game, especially in digital form?
Hey, it was fun. So that'll be my next one that I beat was the OG Game Boy Color Pokemon trading card game. Just great for Switch Online. Because like the last year I got really into card games again. So I was like, you know what? Let's go through, play some of this.
I played it like I had the original cartridge and I played and beat it. But even on like the 3DS Virtual Console for that game, you couldn't make save states. Can you like backtrack on the Switch Online?
You can backtrack on the Switch Online. It's weird because Pokemon Stadium you can't, but trading card game you can. Now I did kind of test a little bit. You can't really change coin flips. So like I played different cards, I did all of that, but it almost felt like it was locked in RNG wise to what the coins were flipping into.
Well, that's where I'm pretty sure that was part of the logic behind not being able to on the 3DS. So that's why I was wondering.
Yeah, it does let you if you accidentally like double tap and do something you didn't want to do, or oh shoot, my guy died. I shouldn't have used that energy on him. You can backtrack and put it on something else.
Not that we would ever cheat.
No, never. But, you know, I had the Pokemon cards growing up. Who didn't? Anyone around our age.
I can literally see Pokemon cards a meter from my face right now.
Out, up, super cool. But it was fun. It was a fun experience. simple concept, right? If you've played any kind of card game, it's pretty
Also,
well
Magic the Gathering cards here. Damn, dude.
I told you I got into card games.
Yeah.
But there's a certain sense of simplicity when you're in like the ground floor of card games. And by that, I mean like your base set with maybe an expansion or two, because getting into a little bit more, as each set comes out with new Pokemon, new moves, they have to get a little bit stronger because then it forces you to buy the cards to use them, right? It makes everyone more money. But it's really interesting to just see what you can do with like the base. They don't do anything really crazy and psychotic. It's just play energy cards, attack, do damage. You don't have to worry about anything too bad. But yeah, it was fun. I eventually reached a point where I said, nah, this is a little bit too much, because you have to, build a deck. You beat the person, you get 2 packs of cards to kind of add to your grouping. But if you don't get lucky on what cards are in the decks and the packs, you just have to keep playing the same person over and over again, and that got a little tiresome.
And I don't remember how long ago it was that I played it on its like original Game Boy Color cartridge, but I remember being like really into it, and like it was a good experience to like get into and delve like several dozens of hours into kind of playing battles over and over to build up your deck. I don't know if I would have the time to do that right now, though.
Yeah, I reached a good end point, and I went, okay, this is good. I had my fun with it. It was nice to kind of relearn a lot of it, because I used to play a lot of Hearthstone back in the day, so it was nice to just get something else, still kind of online video game format, just to kind of go through and figure out, okay, what should I do? What cards should I play? Things like that.
All right. And to go into my last segment, because there's only one more game I played that I really want to talk about, but I'm going to do just a couple of rapid fire ones that I did delve into for a while. So I did play Mario Tennis on Nintendo 64 and 1080 Snowboarding on Nintendo 64. Not the online versions, though, which is weird because like they're both available on Switch online. I wasn't even thinking about that. I literally just had my Nintendo 64 out and felt like playing some games that I might be able to knock out quickly. And like the tennis, I played quite a bit as a kid, so it was literally just me blasting through.
You play a couple games, you go, that was fun.
Yeah, like I can still win the Star Cup tournament, which is like the main story mode finale without any hesitation, without losing a single round. And then 1080 is just a good snowboarding game. Lots of great music. But then I also played Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Excellent. Probably might be my favorite out of them all, because it played really hard into using sound cues. And once you understand which sound cues mean what, you understand like where things are and how it's being played. But it's still, you have to run up to the door, listen in for a few seconds. And if you have footage of this playing in the background, like you might see that where it's like you go up to the door, you stop because you have to listen and see if you hear breathing. And that was just like really cool, because if you mess that up, you are going to get jump scared. And so even after understanding how it works, it's like you just don't want to have that moment happen. And it was really cool. 5, though, which is Sister Location, I just don't like.
It looked really weird. I had never played any of the Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't generally have an interest in horror games, but while we're sitting there recording all the games, I went, you know what, these seem kind of cool. Like, 1 seemed interesting. I don't think they're still for me. They're not my kind of jam. But 1 and 4 were definitely those where you're like, okay, like I can see why this is appealing to people who really like this kind of horror. But 5 kind of felt like they were trying to just make it too long form.
It's like, rather than present you with an idea and have you improve your skills over time, it's like, we're going to put a bunch of one-off scenarios at you in a row. And I don't know, that just didn't vibe with me. I did watch Markiplier's playthrough again because I was kind of curious, just trying to remember what it was like when it first came out. And he was sitting there praising it. And I'm like, it's crazy how I looked up to this as like, this is how this game is being perceived, but actually doing it on my own was like, nah,
Well,
Not
but
for
how
me.
long ago was the Markiplier playthrough?
Like 2015, 16.
Yeah. So it's like, it could just be a lot has changed in 9 years.
I'd be curious if you tried it now. But anyway, the actual game that I wanted to talk about is Metroid. And I mentioned wanting to get into the rest of the Metroid games that I've never played before. So I thought I'd do the very first one on the original Nintendo. I didn't do it on the original Nintendo hardware because it is a game like the old Zelda where it is just very difficult to get into in 2024 without a guide and without just kind of using the backtracking feature on Nintendo Switch Online to just go to the start of the hallway at least and give that another shot so that you're not just retreading the same ground over and over. Like, it is NES hard when people talk about NES hard. But it does have that basic DNA of a Metroid game that all the future Metroid games ran with. But like, there's only maybe 5 or 6 actual upgrades and like 3 bosses. So after playing something like Metroid Dread, it is very simple to go back to. And it just has that very basic, like, this is the start of the franchise feel.
It does seem, though, like something you could get done relatively quickly once you kind of get your bearings on controls and stylings of it, right?
Mm-hmm. And like many NES games, like infamously being able to crouch in the corner for the Dark Link fight in Zelda 2 and just stab him to death. I took full advantage of really cheesy strats, like when you fight Ridley, there's a chance if you just stand right below him and just keep firing missiles in your blaster that the fireballs he shoots are just going to keep going over you. And I literally just stood there for 30 seconds until he died and was more than happy with that.
Like, perfect, move on.
And that's because when you're just wandering through, there are some frustratingly designed enemies, and like their positioning is clearly like Mega Man style of like designed to make you in the middle of your jump that you're already committed to. It jumps out of the lava, knocks you back into the lava. Now you've taken an immense amount of damage. Like, and it seems almost purposely designed that way. And rather than deal with that frustration, as I said, let's just back it up a little second and not do that. But there's also just not a lot of health and ammo pickups. So that was part of it. Is I wanted to be ready for the actual big encounters. So I just did a little fine tuning of my playthrough to make it more enjoyable.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for Super Metroid because I think that is where a lot of people agree that's just a fantastic game and really just improves on what the first one did.
Yeah, and see, my experience with it is Metroid Zero Mission, and I know nothing about what's really changed between it. I just know it's a remake of the original and Game Boy Advance.
Well, if I'm going to do all the Metroid games this year on top of my RPGs, I'm probably going to play Zero Mission because I do have it, so I'll let you know when I get to it.
Oh yeah, it was a fun one. I quite liked it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got 2 more that I beat, and then a quick little preamble, because I know one of my goals for February was to do what I called like a Steam cleanup. And that to me is basically, I'll turn on some games, play 10, 15, 20 minutes of it. If it catches me or is like, oh, this is something that I'll enjoy, I'll pause it or beat it. That's what happened with Post Void last month. Or I'll just go, you know what? I don't really think I'd like this. Back, 8, 10 years ago, I bought a lot of those indie packs or like bundle packs where, you spend $20, get 6 games. And now it's just clogging up everything. So I'm just kind of filtering through all those. So I did do it, just, it's not really anything to note.
Fair enough.
But one game that I did come back to, and I figured, why not, instead of starting from the beginning, just continue where I left off and then just kind of go from there, because it'll be a lot of extra hours, was Spider-Man 2018. The first redoing of the Spider-Man, the PS4 one. And it's fun.
Like you had started it?
I had started it maybe...
On Steam?
No, PS4.
Oh, on PS4, okay.
But I had done it maybe 5 years ago. And I just stopped it, and I can tell you when, and I can tell you why, because you reach the point where like you kind of do a fight with Doc Ock. You finish that whole thing, and then the Sinister Six happens, and I just kind of went, well, that's kind of dumb. And then I stopped it. I just never got around to doing it again.
Maybe it's because I just hadn't consumed a lot of Spider-Man material at that time, but when I first played it, I was just hooked, like right from the beginning.
I think my issue was just, I liked the idea of it being Peter Parker versus Doc Ock, and it just kind of felt like you threw a bunch of, in my mind, classic, like a more iconic Spider-Man villains, and just kind of lumped them all together.
Like, if it's any indication of my level of Spider-Man knowledge, there's a clip of me on Twitch when, like, Dr. Octavius, like, pulls off his jacket and, like, the mechanical arms start coming out. I'm like, oh, Dr. Octavius, like, Dr. Octopus. And I was like, Doc, oh, okay, I get it. And then I remember my friend in the chat being like, are you serious? Like, I get it now. Never seen a Spider-Man movie before then, but now I love the Tom Holland ones. But anyway.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they're great. But that game just made me understand why people enjoyed GTA 5. Right? Like, I had a friend in university who would just pop on GTA 5 on the PS3 after school, just play like 45 minutes an hour, just driving around. And not really doing anything, just like driving around, just settling down. And I totally get that with swinging around New York.
Yeah, the number of people that have come over to my place and been like, say I have to do something, they're like, oh, well, can I just like play some GTA? And I'm like, why is this such a thing that...
Yeah, no, it's wild.
It's like everyone wants to just, if they have 30 minutes of spare time, just run around in Los Santos.
But I get it now playing Spider-Man. They're like, there's the issues with objective padding and things like that with it, but it is just fun to swing around, kind of see what you find, see what you can do. It's what I enjoyed with some of the older Assassin's Creed games as well. But the story was good. I liked the fact that it's more like a Spider-Man story, right? I liked the Miles Morales scenes coming in. I like the Mary Jane scenes. I haven't done a replay of it, and I've heard a lot of people say, on the replay, I really don't care about the MJ scenes because it's just not Spider-Man.
Fair enough.
I could get it.
Fair enough. And that's where it's been so long since I played that game, and I have the Miles Morales game more fresh in my mind. Yeah. So I don't particularly... The fact that I don't remember the MJ scenes might be telling.
It's more like your stealth sections, right? You don't want to get caught because it's an automatic. It's the same with doing any of the Miles scenes. But one of the only issues I really had with it on second playthrough is, and it's more of a wider arcing question, I guess, is whether or not you like the idea of teases at endings. Right? Because the ending of Spider-Man kind of teases the stuff that I'll get into in Miles Morales. And I likened it to kind of teases for a sequel in a movie. And it's like, well, what are you going to do if it doesn't do well?
Like, are you... saying like you don't feel like it had a resolution?
Yeah, it feels like it kind of cheapens the ending a little bit.
Okay.
Right? It feels like you didn't complete anything. It's just, oh, now I gotta go get this and play it again to continue on, but not in a good way. Right? Where it feels like, I guess I'll try to use Final Fantasy as an example, even though they're just completely different stories, but they're self-contained. Right? You have your party, you do your thing, you continue on. And it just felt like with Spider-Man, you're like, okay, well, I did this, but now, like, when's this sequel coming?
Well, apparently in 2023, that's when Spider-Man 2 dropped.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And does that cover all the games you beat?
I beat one more. It's a short one. It's a fun one. I called it a good 6 out of 10, but like a good 6 out of 10.
We all have ourselves a good 6 out of 10 sometimes.
It's a game called Roundabout. I had it on Steam for a while. But you're a limousine driver picking people up and delivering them places. But you don't just drive straight. Your limousine rotates. So it turns it into more like an environmental puzzler game.
Okay.
So you do little scenes. You have to kind of walk through and spin around things and move away from various structures that shouldn't be issues, but because you like to spin, that's just, tough luck.
Do you happen to have the game or know of the game Absolute Drift?
No.
That was a really fun one. That sounds like a very similar premise. If you want to check that one out at some point,
I think I will. But like it's a super arcadey one. I did it in like 3 hours.
Okay.
Just doing everything. It was nice. It's short, quick, but once you get a feel of the mechanics, it's pretty fun. There isn't a way to fast travel, and that's one of the big critiques I had. Because when you go around and try to just get all the random collectibles that are around, you know, it's kind of a hassle because you can't just like, okay, I did everything over here. Let's go to the fast travel point.
Like, is it one kind of big interconnected world that you travel around in? Okay.
Yeah, but I feel like it would have been nice because if you die, you go to whatever the nearest mechanics place is. And it's harder to, why can't you just fast travel through it? Is my main critique, but.
Because there's so many challenges to be had by spinning around the whole way.
But it was fun. I liked it.
Solid 6 out of 10.
Yeah, it was a good 6 out of 10 review. I was trying to be more critical, and then I can't have every game I beat be like an 8 or a 9.
Fair enough. All right. I think before we go, just a quick glance over what we want to accomplish in March.
I have one goal. I've started it simple. My goal for March is beating Okami. I've got Okami HD for PS4, Okami for Wii. I'm probably just going to do PS4 because I don't like Wii controls.
But how would you describe the art style in it? Like, I know I've heard specific terms used because of like watercolor.
Yeah, it's like a painted watercolor one. It's really, really nice.
But it's like got this like traditional Japanese style to it.
Yeah, very Japanese style. I remember watching way, way, way back in the day someone doing a Let's Play through of Okami and bringing up all of the the mythological Japanese context of it all.
Mm-hmm. And I think the fact it's been described as a Zelda-like and such a cool art style has made it one that's been on my radar for many years, and I want to play that one as well.
If it works out well, then I've got Okami Den, which is the sequel to it on DS, so maybe I just pop that in afterwards as well. We'll see.
And I think for me, in March, I wanted to pull out the Super Nintendo to do one of those RPGs. Could be Earthbound, could be Final Fantasy III, could be Secret of Mana. Actually, I don't even think I listed Secret of Mana as an RPG, but I might just play it because I want to play it. And that's where I was just taking a look, and I think in terms of games that I've never played before that I just really, really, really want to give a shot, there was a whole bunch on Super Nintendo, and I thought, hell, I wanted to do Super Metroid. I want to play an RPG, and the Super Nintendo is famous for good RPGs, as well as maybe just cross a few platformers off. Well, I have it out. Maybe some Mega Man X, maybe Kirby Superstar.
Yeah, stick the console out for the month, see what happens.
So hopefully I'll be back to talk in a month about all the Super Nintendo games I beat.
Yeah, maybe even rare stuff, right?
Maybe even rare stuff. Yep, get those Donkey Kong Country platformers rolling.
Exactly. Play through them again. Why not? They're great. But that's it for today. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening.